These are our objectives, meaning what are we going to learn today? And let's look. We're going to talk about research. What is research? The second thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we do research. And then the third thing we're going to do is we're going to prepare to research at home tonight. Sound like fun?
Yeah.
I see some hands going up. This weekend, to teach you, I thought about what she wrote. Now she could have wrote the story one way. Check this out. Is that cool?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about it. She could have wrote the story like this. The other day, we moved. I kissed the window goodbye. There's the E. It's hiding. Then we moved. But did she write it like that?
No.
No. What did she do? What did she do? Let's take a look. Let's take a look. All right. Here's what she did. We're gonna get all this up, don't we?
I think that's a lot. I think that's an eraser.
I hear some boys and girls saying, I think that's a lot. And it is a lot. Why? What did she do? She put lots of information in there, didn't she?
Yes.
She did. Let's read it again. And while we read, I want you to notice how much nicer this sounds. The details she adds. It was the leaving morning. Boxes of clothes, toys, dishes, and pictures of us everywhere. So what does Angela do here, guys? What does she do?
Stretches out.
She stretches out. Excellent. And she adds a lot of information. But the question is, where do writers get information? Where do they get information? We see over here. Good writers get information from their senses. So, their senses. Let's look. One place.
Our mind.
You can use your mind, can't you?
Yeah.
You can close your eyes and visualize a place you were, like I'm doing right now. Okay. It's not working smooth. There it is. What did we just talk about at the beginning? What we're going to learn today? Researching. Okay? Do you think that Angela maybe did some researching?
Yeah.
I think she probably did. You guys remember this story here?
No. Yeah.
Make way for ducklings? He researched to make that story. Make way for ducklings. And you know what he did? While he was writing, he kept ducks in his tub. And so he'd be writing and he'd stop. And he'd go and he'd observe his ducks and look at them. Look right here. You can see the ducks in the tub, right? What do you notice about the ducks? Anybody got something? Rocco?
They're different colors.
They're different colors. There's some information by researching, looking at the ducks. You see how they move. You're able to add your information, your details, from looking at them, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
That's researching. There's one way to research. And you know what? Do you think Angela Johnson researched to write The Leaving Morning?
Yeah. No.
No?
Yeah.
We don't really know, Rocco. You're right.
Yeah.
But we can probably assume she did, right? What do you think she did? Remember the diner across the street from where she lived? Remember that part? Maybe she drove by her old neighborhood and checked out the diner and said, that's bringing back some memories. Maybe the smell from the diner, from the food cooking, and seeing people go into the diner. Or maybe she closed her eyes like this, like I did earlier, and she pictured the movers in their blue suits. You think she maybe could have done that?
Yeah.
Okay? So we can research from our memories and our mind, or we can go places, do things, make us remember where we were. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
All right. So, what we're going to do right now is we're going to look at a piece of writing ourselves. So, to do this, we're going to go to our circle area. What I want you to do, get up slowly, safely, quietly, walk over to the circle area. Okay? Let's do it.
Boys and girls, make sure you sit next to your writing partner.
All right, so let's take a look at a piece of writing. What I want you to do is turn to your partner, and maybe you guys can talk about some things that you remember. What are some details we could add to this story? Close your eyes and you can remember where you were, and you can think of details. So do you think you have something we could add up there? This Star the Whale came to Jameson. We learned about her life. It was interesting. Probably a lot more that you remember from that event, right? You could add. So think about what you would like to add. Good job. All good stuff. I do want to say I heard some excellent talk going on. Some good discussion about the details. That's what we're looking for. This is awesome. Okay. Everybody done?
Yeah.
You ready to talk about this? Now let's think about what we just learned. Okay, when we talked about Angela, we thought she closed her eyes and she pictured the men moving, right? She may have drove by.
You want to write that as a sentence?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know what, Rocco? You just gave a lot of detail. That's awesome. Let's try and put the most important information. What do you think is the most important about those details? Let's write that down so we can save room for everybody else, but very creative, Rocco. That's what we like to see. Let's take a look here. As we write down what Rocco told us. It looks great. Miss Henderson has nice handwriting, doesn't she? Very nice handwriting. Kind of jealous.
It's because I practice.
Maybe. Maybe she can give me a lesson. Okay. Let's read that together. Is Star had babies and her babies had babies. It's a nice piece of information. Alex.
This star was the same size as a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Wow.
That's a good one.
That's a very good one. Did you hear that, boys and girls?
Yeah.
Now, how did you know that, Alex?
We measured the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it was all the same.
So that was a nice memory from your mind you thought of. That's what good writers do. They think about what they want to write, don't they? They use research. They think about past events that they may want to write about. And they give details. We're doing it right now together, aren't we?
Mr. C,
Yes.
how do babies come from a whale's tummy, bodies?
How do babies come from tummies? Well,
Similar to other animals, Rocco, like
yeah,
dogs and
just
cats.
like every mammals do. Good question, Rocco. All right. Caleb, you got something to add? Be thinking over here this side of the room. I'm looking this
There
way.
were things on his chin.
You're right. Do you remember what those were on his chin? What was on Istar's chin? Were you talking about the bumps? The big bumps that we saw? Yeah. Do you remember what those were?
There was hair growing out of her chin.
Yeah, there were bumps on her chin where there were hairs coming out. Good job.
Olivia, I saw your hand go up. You look pretty anxious. What were you going to say? Do you remember?
The bumps on his chin was hairs growing out of it.
Excellent. Good job remembering that. Okay. Tell you what, this is starting to look a lot better, isn't it? Does it help you remember what happened? If somebody were to come and read this, they would be able to say, wow, I like this second part you added, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Because it gives more what?
Information.
What else could you say? That's with a D. Or D. Details. There we go. We got it. So, should we read it together?
Yeah.
Let's see how we've changed this, how we've added more information. Let's start at the top. Ready? Star the whale came to Jameson. We learned about her life. It was interesting. Star had babies and her babies had babies. Star was the same size as Tyrannosaurus Rex. her chin where her hair grew out. We put on nest to compare its star's tail to other fish. Boys and girls, we just used our minds to research. We researched our minds and we added detail. Give some hand. Excellent job. So, what do you think we're going to do right now? We're going to go to writing. We have options, don't we? Okay. What are you going to do today? Okay, you can use some comeback lines. Okay, you can use comeback lines. We can research details. Now listen, I know if you look at an old piece of writing and you say, oh, I can't really do that research right now. I'd like to be at home. What you can do is maybe close your eyes and envision it. And then later on we're going to talk about what we could maybe do at home once we're done writing today. Maybe tonight you could go home and do some investigating. We'll talk about that later. But right now, we time to write.